I joined a group of hiking buddies on a self-driving tour to Tibet. One evening, the most attractive female hiker in our group slipped into my car. The night was very harmonious, but what happened afterward left me with deep regret. It became a recurring nightmare in my life. When we arrived in Tibet, the sky was already pitch black. Along the way, our group's itinerary was meticulously planned. Every day before sunset, we'd head to the hotel that had been booked in advance to rest. Except for me. I don't like staying in hotels. I prefer sleeping in my car, which is like my second home. Initially, I didn't even want to follow the group's itinerary. However, since it was my first self-driving trip and I had no experience for safety reasons, I decided to stick with them. Our group consisted of 5 people. I wasn't familiar with them, and I'm not one to talk much, so I couldn't even recall their names. I only remembered that there were 3 men and 2 women, including myself. One of the women left a deeper impression on me. She liked wearing sunglasses and had her hair tied up in a high ponytail. Her legs were very white and long, with smooth skin. Whenever we stopped to rest, she would often put one foot on a rock, standing like a female hero against the wind. To be honest, I had heard the men in our group talk about her more than once. However, these weren't the reasons she left an impression on me. It's because I discovered she, like me, preferred sleeping in her car rather than a hotel. That night, everyone else checked into a hotel to rest, leaving only our 2 cars parked by the desolate roadside. I listened to some music for a while, quietly watching the moon rise higher until drowsiness set in. I adjusted the backrest and lay down, closing my eyes and preparing to sleep when my car door was knocked on. I remained silent for a moment, knowing it was one of us since there were only 2 cars around. "What's wrong?" I pretended not to hear at first but decided to ask anyway. "Can't sleep. Can we chat for a bit?" Her voice came through the window. After a brief hesitation, I turned on the car's interior lights and opened the door silently. She quickly got in. Under the dim light inside the car, I watched her quietly, feeling a bit uneasy since we weren't familiar with each other. "I'm so tired," she suddenly sighed. I remained silent, unsure how to respond. She didn't seem to care. She leaned back in her seat, squinting with her eyes partially closed and murmuring, "Do you have desires?" "What?" I was confused by her question. "Do you have desires?" She suddenly sat straight up, her bright eyes fixed on mine. In the light, her eyes sparkled like they had an inner glow. I couldn't bear to look into her eyes, so I lied down on my seat and closed them. "Yeah, I want to make a lot of money, be successful, live without worries, and be free." I muttered on about my unrealistic dreams until even I couldn't help but laugh a little. Before I finished speaking, she suddenly leaned over onto me. The contact with her body and the intoxicating scent overwhelmed my mind momentarily. Her breathing was sweet, and her eyes were very captivating. "What I'm talking about isn't that kind of desire," she said. A blush rose to her cheeks. I swallowed hard, my voice shaking for some reason. But I couldn't finish what I wanted to say because she kissed me on the lips. "Okay," I started passionately responding. Afterward, we leaned against the car and smoked. I discovered she was a smoker too. Not the kind that women usually smoke, but the same brand as mine, Lacoon. I saw the flame dancing at her fingertips as she softly exhaled a cloud of thick smoke and then glared at me. "Never seen a girl smoke before?" "That's not it," I replied, turning my head to take a drag of my own cigarette. "Why are you staring at me then?" She looked up at the night sky. I took another drag without responding. Perhaps because she hadn't heard me speak in a long time, she carelessly threw the half-smoked cigarette to the ground and crushed it with her foot. Then she took 2 steps forward, standing before me. Her bright and beautiful eyes fixed on mine as she extended a hand. "All right, give me the money." "Ah!" I was caught off guard, unsure how to react. "What money?" "For what happened earlier, of course." She was completely matter-of-fact. I laughed and finished the cigarette in my hand, then looked at her fearlessly. "Actually, it was you who initiated it, so if anyone should pay, you should be paying me." She pulled back her hand, seeming to ponder this. "That does sound right." I breathed a silent sigh of relief. "But do you think anyone would believe you?" she asked with a smile. My expression turned dark. "What do you mean?" "Nothing. I just said if I accuse you of rape, do you think they would believe your side of the story?" She spoke these words with such ease, as if it wasn't her first time saying them. If looks could kill, I would have already killed her a million times. I grasped her collar and pulled her towards me. "We're in the middle of nowhere. Are you not afraid I might kill you?" There was no fear in her eyes. "You wouldn't dare." I fell silent, releasing her collar. She was right. I wouldn't dare, and there was no reason for me to risk my entire life for this. This time, all I could say was that I was just unlucky. From now on, the farther I stay from this woman, the better. I leaned back against the car. How much? You're admitting it so quickly? She asked with some surprise. I smiled wryly. What choice do I have? I don't want to ruin my life. True enough, she chuckled dryly. Not many people are as clear-headed as you. If I were clear-headed, I wouldn't have fallen for your trap, I said with a self-deprecating laugh. Also true, she smiled, seeming pleased with me. I'll take $500. I nodded. At least she wasn't asking for a ridiculous amount. In a flat tone, I said, phone. She handed over her phone, but it was a friend request code, not a payment code. The wrong code. She took back her phone, checked it and said, no, it's the right one. This is for adding friends, not for payment. I know, I meant to scan this. I stared at her, unsure what game she was playing, but I silently added her as a friend. Accept it. Okay. After she accepted, I transferred the money to her. All I had to do next was wait for her to receive it, and as soon as she did, I would delete her without hesitation. She glanced at her phone and feigned surprise. Ethan Thompson, you really sent it. I wasn't surprised that she knew my name since we were part of the same group. Upon hearing this, I raised my eyebrows. What else would I do? I was just joking earlier. I thought you'd understand when you saw me pull out the friend request code, she said. I remained silent. She returned the money I sent. Could it be that I had misunderstood her entirely? This doubt lingered in my mind because I always felt that this woman was more complex than I imagined. It was only now that I noticed her ID. It was an interesting username reminiscent of a movie I liked from South Korea which had the same title. However, the protagonist of that movie was not consistent and deceived everyone, turning out to be a chilling and thorough witch. I wondered if her choice of the ID had a similar implication. I didn't ask her about it, but she handed me a cigarette. I didn't get it wrong, right? Your name is Ethan Thompson. I accepted the cigarette. That's correct. After lighting it and taking a deep drag, I slowly exhaled a cloud of smoke. And you? What's your name? You don't know my name? She asked with some surprise. No. Not knowing my name after sleeping with me? She threw her cigarette butt to the ground. I felt a bit embarrassed but still replied, exactly. So you should tell me. She looked at me deeply, as if trying to find something in my gaze. But soon she gave up, saying wearily, fine, my name is Ava Wells. It's a nice name. What? Your name is nice, I said. Oh, Ava Wells replied indifferently. Yeah, time to sleep, I said, looking at her briefly before continuing. Are you heading back or? Upon hearing this, Ava gave me a look. Of course, I'm going back. The next day, when the group had assembled, I was still half asleep. The previous night had been too exhausting, and I hadn't slept well at all. When the captain saw everyone was present, he announced our departure without any objections, and everyone got into their cars. However, something unexpected happened when we were about to leave. Ava's car broke down, and although everyone came to take a look, no one could fix it. Eventually, we had to call a tow truck. While everyone was idly waiting for the tow truck to arrive, Ava found the captain. She offered to leave the group, citing not wanting to delay everyone else's trip, and said she would stay behind alone to wait for the tow truck. The captain hesitated initially but agreed because Ava was insistent. We didn't have very close relationships in the group since we were all traveling together for the first time, so everyone just made some perfunctory remarks. I stood aside watching them exchange pleasantries, not saying a word myself. Occasionally, I would glance at Ava, realizing she was also looking at me, and she even winked at me. I didn't understand what she meant, but I noticed she had played with her phone earlier, so it was possible she sent me a message. This thought led me to check my phone, and sure enough, I found a message from her. Can you stay here with me? It was followed by a cute emoji expressing disappointment. I quietly put my phone away, knowing I couldn't refuse her request. Taking a deep breath, I approached the captain. I told him that I knew Ava well and offered to leave the group to wait with her. The captain, perhaps noting our unusual habit of sleeping in the cars, didn't question my statement. However, he was a bit puzzled that I hadn't mentioned it with Ava earlier. I explained that I hadn't thought it through beforehand, and the captain didn't suspect anything else. So, I stayed behind with Ava, watching as the others left. After they were gone, Ava patted my shoulder, sounding somewhat resentful. I thought you would volunteer to stay with me. I shrugged and handed her a cigarette. I thought you didn't need company. How could I not? She took the cigarette and gave me a look. All right, sorry, I said casually without much intention of apologizing. Your attitude is quite dismissive, she complained. Let's get into my car, I suggested, glancing at the sky. It's about to rain. She gave me a quirky look. You have a lot of energy, don't you? I paused, my face turning dark. What are you thinking? I pointed at the sky. It's going to rain heavily, and it doesn't look like it'll be light. Oh, she said, her face flushing. I thought I wouldn't miss the chance to tease her. You thought what? Just then, a sudden clap of thunder boomed in the sky, catching us off guard. Ava was startled and dropped the cigarette she had just taken a few puffs of, quickly opening the car door and getting inside. I watched her swift movements, feeling a bit speechless. I too threw away my cigarette and got into the car. Just as I did, I felt a raindrop hit my arm. As soon as I closed the car door, the heavy rain pounded against the window, creating a steady drip-drop sound. How much longer until the tow truck arrives? I asked, leaning back in my seat. Don't know, she replied with a vague shake of her head, watching the rain outside with interest. Since I didn't know what to say, I remained silent. After what felt like a long time, she seemed to tire of the view outside and lay down on her seat, closing her eyes. Suddenly, she asked, Don't you plan on taking responsibility? I hadn't expected her to say that, so I turned to look at her. Do you need me to? She gazed at me in surprise. How can you, as a guy, say something like that? She paused, a fleeting look of disappointment crossing her eyes before she turned to look out the other window. But I don't really need it. I replied, following up with another question. Do you have a boyfriend? She swore under her breath. What kind of question is that? Of course not. If I had one, would I be messing around with you? What do you take me for? She demanded. I didn't dare answer. At least I didn't think she was a particularly good person. Or maybe that's not fair. It's just that she seemed rather casual. She noticed my silence and slapped my arm from out of nowhere. Last night was an accident, she said, her voice softer, as if she realized her mistake. I didn't dare say much, only muttering an I'm not as casual as you think. Her face flushed again. Okay, I replied, unsure how to continue this conversation. People have physical needs, don't they? Her ears, too, turned red. She looked very attractive. Right? I said sparingly. For some reason, she seemed annoyed again and unconsciously opened the car door, ready to leave. However, rain splashed onto her face, so she closed the door and punched my arm instead. I endured her minor attacks quietly, my eyes drawn to hers. I have to admit, she was really beautiful. It was hard to believe someone as lovely as her didn't have a boyfriend. How old are you? I asked, suddenly curious. Now that the topic had changed, she looked at me with renewed interest, the flush on her cheeks fading fast. You don't know it's impolite to ask a girl her age? I watched as the flush on her face disappeared, feeling a bit sorry, and sighed lightly. I do now. She glared at me again. 26. Oh. She looked exasperated. What's the point of just saying oh? As a courtesy, you should also tell me your age. 28. Wouldn't have guessed, she said, touching my face. You're 28, but your skin looks so good. I pushed her hand away. Born with it. Pfft. She pulled her hand back, then asked with a curious tone. At your age, shouldn't you be married? No. I shook my head. I'm not married, and I don't have a girlfriend. That's strange. You're pretty handsome. Why can't you find a girlfriend? I had one a long time ago. How long ago? About 2 or 3 years ago. So, did you break up with her? Or did she break up with you? She looked at me with a curious expression. Why do I have to tell you? I rolled over, turning my head towards the window on the other side. What's there not to share? She, without hesitation, slapped my buttocks. I quickly sat up and looked at her seriously. You're being reckless. She wasn't intimidated, instead grinning at me. The tow truck should be here soon. We glared at each other for a while, but I was the first to give in and look away, because I realized her eyes were captivating, or rather, she as a person was captivating. I felt an unfamiliar surge within me. I knew exactly what that feeling was. The last time I experienced this was when I first met my ex-girlfriend. They say everyone calls this feeling butterflies or being smitten. Back when I first met my ex-girlfriend, I felt the same impulse. They call this feeling being smitten or having butterflies, but I prefer to call it an impulse, as it suits the situation better. Come on. Since you lost, just tell me. Ava pressed for an answer. It seemed like she would keep asking if I didn't reveal anything. Although I found it odd that she was so interested in this, I decided not to overthink it and reluctantly said, I broke up with her. I don't believe you, she pouted. I know men always talk tough. Even if it was she who broke up with you, you wouldn't admit it. I didn't bother arguing since what I said was true. Don't believe me if you don't want to. I was just kidding. But have you ever thought about getting back together with her? Yes. But I quickly dismissed that idea. Ah, why? Ava was puzzled. Did she do something wrong to you? No. I shook my head, my thoughts drifting back to the past. Then why did you break up with her? Ava's voice brought me back to reality. I stared at the woman in front of me, dazed because I realized she wasn't similar to my ex-girlfriend in appearance, but in mannerisms and actions. In some ways, they overlapped significantly. Hey! Ava shouted suddenly, snapping me out of my reverie. I noticed her hands waving in front of my eyes. Oh! I shook my head, brushing off these random thoughts. I didn't want to get married. I find it too exhausting. Just because of that? She continued to ask. Yeah, just because of that. Did you still like her when you broke up with her? I forgot. You can't just forget. She seemed dissatisfied with my answer and wanted to keep questioning me. At this moment, I saw the tow truck arriving, and I realized the rain had stopped. The car is here, I announced, turning to get out of the car. What car? She initially didn't react, then suddenly realized and exclaimed with a series of "ohs" before also getting out. She truly resembled my ex-girlfriend. If not for the significant difference in their faces, I would have suspected she was my ex-girlfriend herself. We followed the tow truck, keeping close behind. At the repair shop, the staff inspected the car thoroughly and told us it would take about 3 days to fix. Naturally, I had no objections. After all, it wasn't my car. Ava didn't have any objections either, but without a car, she couldn't easily go around as she pleased. As for me, I had lost interest in continuing our tour of Tibet and didn't mind spending a bit more time accompanying her. We were in a place called Bomi, a beautiful spot where, unless otherwise planned, we would spend the next 3 days. The first day passed smoothly. We had dinner together and slept in my car that night, but I had no idea why Ava suddenly wanted to go to a bar on the second night. I had no choice but to go with her. We sat in a booth, sipping beer and watching numerous people dance before us. The loud music reverberated throughout the bar, and multicolored lights illuminated us. She slightly raised her glass, and her cheeks flushed due to the lighting or the effects of the alcohol. For a moment, I was captivated, forgetting that she still held her glass up. Hey, drink! The bar was chaotic, and conversations were essentially shouting. Oh! I quickly reacted and hastily raised my own cup. Although I didn't enjoy this kind of atmosphere, since she wanted to come, I accompanied her. Halfway through the drinks, Ava was slightly tipsy. I had thought her tolerance would be better, but she was already starting to get drunk. My tolerance is okay, so I still felt fine. Ethan, she suddenly called out my name. What's up? I responded. I find you quite interesting, she smiled, looking at me with a tipsy gaze. I was taken aback. My ex-girlfriend had said the same thing once. It's inevitable for men to feel melancholic when remembering such moments, so I picked up my glass and took a silent sip. Unfortunately, this action caught Ava's attention. She puffed up her cheeks, looking displeased. Drinking without calling me. I made a sour face, as usual, and placated her. Next time for sure. She was originally sitting across from me but suddenly got up and came over to sit right beside me. I watched her, wondering what she was up to or what she wanted to say, but she didn't do anything. She just quietly looked at my face. My heart skipped a beat. Even now, I still couldn't bear to look into her eyes. I hastily turned my head away, only to find her using her finger to play with my ear and then embracing me. This action, this gesture, was almost identical to my ex-girlfriend's, and it seemed like I saw my ex's shadow in her. I gently pushed her away and helped her sit upright, then looked into her eyes. I realized why I couldn't look into her eyes. They were similar to my ex-girlfriend's too. Ava, I whispered her name in her ear. What's wrong? Her face seemed to redden further. "Do you know someone named Wu Mingxin?" I asked. Wu Mingxin was my ex-girlfriend's name. When I said this, her body trembled slightly, but she quickly composed herself. I thought it was just the alcohol affecting her, so I didn't make much of it. "No, who is she?" She shook her head after trying to recall. "Nothing, just mentioned her randomly," I replied with little enthusiasm, feeling a bit tired suddenly. "Is she your ex-girlfriend?" She turned curious once more. But this time I wasn't interested in indulging her curiosity. Her asking about this name that should have faded from my memory somehow brought up a tinge of sadness in me. I realized that maybe I had gotten too close to her recently. This thought led me to look at her and say, "We've had enough to drink. Let's go back." She frowned, seemingly unhappy. "Who said I've had enough?" Saying that, she defiantly downed 2 more cups. "Ethan, why don't you take responsibility for me?" She gazed at me with drunken, pitiful eyes. I was taken aback. I hadn't expected her to say something like that, but she kept looking at me. I almost agreed, but she burst into laughter and sat back down. "I'm just kidding. Someone like me wouldn't depend on you, and besides, you're not worthy." I came to my senses and managed a slight smile. "True enough. I'm not drinking anymore. Let's go," she said, swaying as she stood up. I quickly went to support her arm. Halfway there, she suddenly grabbed me and fell into my arms. "Ethan, can you book a room for me tonight? I think I drank too much, and I'm afraid I might throw up in your car." Her soft, drunken voice was endearing. "Okay," I agreed, instinctively patting her head. She didn't resist, instead nuzzling my hand like a kitten. I chuckled for some reason, even I wasn't sure why. "All right, let's go," I said with a tender tone, though I didn't even notice the change in my voice myself. "I can't walk. You can carry me," she said, opening her arms like a child and pouting. I laughed again and then, reluctantly, shook my head. "You're really something." "Okay, hop on," I said, squatting down with my back towards her. Hearing this, she jumped up and clung to my back, exclaiming, "Wow, Ethan, you're so nice." She was lighter than I expected, sitting on my back with her head resting on my shoulder. I could smell the shampoo in her hair and the faint scent of her perfume. She sat quietly on my back, and I could hear her steady breathing. In that moment, a strange feeling rose within me. She let out a soft sigh which I heard clearly. "Ethan, I suddenly have the urge to fall in love," she murmured. Her words made my heart beat faster. Maybe it was because carrying someone while walking increased my heart rate, so I rationalized it that way without responding to her. Actually, I didn't want to fall in love or get married either, because a long time ago, I was hurt really badly by someone. "Ethan, I felt like I was going to die during that time. I almost did." She sniffled, and I felt a droplet fall on my clothes. I didn't turn around to see, but I guess she must have cried. I remained silent. I didn't know what to say. I'm not good at comforting people, nor do I speak well. "Ethan, do you know what? I loved him so much, so much. But when he broke up with me, he didn't even give me a reason. He said nothing. He just told me sorry. Is sorry useful? Can sorry ease my pain?" I suddenly recalled that when I broke up with my ex-girlfriend, I only apologized too. My shoulder was wet, and I wondered if it could still dry out. Maybe back then, I should have bought a few beers and some barbecue to take home. I should have turned on the TV and played her favorite series. My ex-girlfriend had a low tolerance. 2 bottles of beer would leave her tipsy. At that moment, I could have paused the TV, handed her a glass of water, and quietly watched her finish it. Then I should have told her I didn't want to get married, using the wine to loosen up our conversation. What would she have done then? Would she have tried to persuade me, or would she have agreed? Either way, it wouldn't have mattered, but at least she wouldn't have suffered like Ava. "Ethan, I hate you." Ava's abruptly raised voice pulled me back from my thoughts. I had no idea why she suddenly hated me, because I hadn't listened to what she was saying beforehand. "Why?" "No reason. I just hate you." It was fine. I let her continue ranting on my back as we walked into a hotel, where I checked in using my ID. When I laid her on the bed, she was still awake, muttering curses. I took off her shoes and adjusted her sleeping position because I had read online that lying flat after drinking can be dangerous. They said it was due to the risk of choking on vomit. I wasn't sure if it was true, but I wasn't willing to take the chance. So, I positioned her to sleep on her side and sat quietly beside her, waiting for her to fall asleep. Once she lay down, Her muttering grew softer until she fell asleep. I gently hooked a finger under her nose. She looked truly beautiful when she was calm. I smiled lightly and turned to leave. But just as I did, a hand caught me. I turned around to see Ava sitting up, her eyes open and gazing at me without a hint of emotion. I felt a surge in my heart rate. "What's wrong? Ethan, do you regret it?" she said abruptly. "What?" I didn't understand what she meant. "The way you treated Wu Mingxin? Do you regret it?" I was taken aback and remained silent for a long time. "It's too late now to talk about regret." "I see." Ava's gaze dimmed significantly. I nodded but didn't add anything. "What if I told you I'm actually Wu Mingxin?" she asked with a sly smile. My heart skipped a beat. My breathing became rapid. In that moment, many thoughts came to mind, and I suddenly realized why she seemed so like my ex-girlfriend. I unintentionally stepped back, consumed by fear and absurdity. At this moment, Ava burst into laughter. "Gotcha! How could that be? Right, how could that be?" I felt like I'd found an escape route and wanted to take it immediately, but then I realized I had never mentioned Wu Mengxin to her. I took a few more steps back, staring intently at her eyes. "How do you know about Wu Mengxin?" "I don't." She tilted her head, her gaze turning innocent once more. Then, I was at a loss for words. Language seemed so weak compared to a single glance from her. "I meant, do you really not regret breaking up with Wu Mingxin?" she explained. "Oh," I replied, figuring it was impossible for someone's appearance to change so drastically. Even if Wu Mingxin had plastic surgery, she wouldn't come back to find me. This thought calmed my racing heart. "Okay, get some rest. I'll leave," I said softly. "Ethan, can you stay with me?" She looked at me with pleading eyes. I was taken aback. "Where would I sleep?" "There." She pointed to the couch. I looked at it and shook my head. "No way, I refuse." "Please." She batted her eyelashes, begging like a puppy. In that moment, I knew I couldn't refuse her. So I sighed and sat down on the couch. "I knew Ethan would be the best," she exclaimed happily. "Good night, Ethan." "Good night," I replied softly, though I wasn't sleepy at all. I played with my phone for a while and quietly watched her. As I watched, I eventually drifted off to sleep. When I woke up, Ava was already eating breakfast. "Wash your face and go. I bought some for you too." She pointed to a bag with 2 buns inside. I rubbed my sleepy eyes but couldn't get up because my legs were numb. So I just sat there for a bit longer. "Why aren't you going?" she asked after a while, noticing I hadn't moved. "My legs are numb," I replied, patting my thighs. "Okay." She nodded, took a big bite of her bun, and mumbled with her mouth full. "Thanks for last night." Still half asleep, I didn't catch it clearly. "What?" After swallowing, she gave me a look. "I said thank you." "Oh, no big deal." I waved it off. My legs were no longer numb, so I quickly went to wash up. After finishing, I ate my breakfast quickly, checked out of the room, and then went to the car. The parking spot was a bit of a distance away. It took about 10 minutes to walk. We walked quietly together, creating a very harmonious scene. Anyone would have thought we were a couple. "Ethan, did you hear what I said last night?" Ava suddenly asked. "Yeah, I did," I replied, glancing at her. "I didn't know you had such a past." She nodded, lowering her head as if recalling unpleasant memories. "Forget it. Don't mind what I said." I didn't respond, knowing it's not something you can easily forget. Sometimes, the more you try to forget something, the more you can't. We spoke at random, and I tried to steer the conversation towards less important topics. Time flies when you're chatting. The walk seemed shorter than it was. We soon arrived at the car, but Ava hesitated to get in. I rolled down the window and looked at her curiously. "What's wrong?" "Ethan, do you remember what I said to you last night?" she asked with a flushed face. "You said a lot of things. How would I know which one?" I furrowed my brow, unsure. "It was the first thing I said after I got on your back," she explained vaguely. After hearing her explanation, I tried to recall it, but I hadn't paid much attention to what she was saying at the time. How could I possibly remember the exact first sentence? Thinking this, I felt a bit embarrassed and scratched my head. "Which one was it?" "You!" She pointed at me indignantly before dropping her hand listlessly. "Forget it." She opened the passenger door and silently got in, buckled her seatbelt without a word, and remained silent throughout. Seeing her like this, I dared not say anything else. All I could manage was a weak suggestion. Let's go check on your car at the repair shop. I meekly started the car and drove off. Halfway there, Ava spoke up. I said, I want to fall in love. Hearing these words, my heart skipped a beat again. It was a familiar feeling, similar to how I felt when she said them last night. I tried to calm myself down before responding, oh, I remember. She looked at me in surprise, then gazed forward. Don't you have anything to say? Driving. I couldn't explain why my heart began to pound again. Trying to soothe my racing heart, I casually replied, oh, good that you remembered. Good that you remembered. I saw a flicker of disappointment in her eyes. Yes, good that I remembered. She echoed my words, and when I looked at her again, she was leaning back in her seat with her eyes closed, pretending to nap. We remained silent the rest of the way and soon arrived at the repair shop. The mechanic told us the situation wasn't bad, and if all went well, the car should be ready by that afternoon. This was clearly good news, but when I looked at Ava, she didn't even crack a smile. During the wait, she was always silent, hardly speaking to me. It wasn't until the car was fixed that I saw a brief, fleeting smile on her face. The car is ready. I'll head back now. Thanks for your help over these days, she said. This was the first sentence I remembered her saying that day. Are you going home? I asked. Yes, she replied impassively. Let's go together. I'm headed back too. No need, we're not going the same way. She rejected my offer without hesitation. For some reason, I felt a bit urgent. Why aren't we going the same way? We came together. She looked at me and chuckled. Because I need to find someone else. Who? I asked instinctively. She didn't tell me who she was looking for. She merely said, I'll go now. Then she drove off quickly, as if afraid I'd follow her. I felt a bit down and I stayed alone in the car until late at night. I didn't know when the sky turned dark or when I fell asleep. When I woke up, the sky was already bright. I saw the sun high in the sky, not a cloud in sight, and thought of that rainy day when we hid in the car together. Forget it. I lit a cigarette in the car, quietly finished it, and then went to eat. Only after that did I slowly drive back home. After driving for days, I finally arrived. I sat wearily on the couch, pulled out my phone, and saw Ava's post on her social media. There was no photo, just 3 words and some ellipses. Sorry. I felt a pang again. I opened our chat window, which was empty except for the notification that we were now friends. I stared at the chat window for a long time. Finally, I made up my mind. I realized I might have fallen for her. I thought I'd never fall for anyone again in my life. I typed out a message on my phone and sent it to Ava. How about I take responsibility for you? She replied quickly. Ethan, what are you talking about? Did you really fall for me? Yes, I replied decisively. That's both regrettable and exciting, she said. I didn't understand how something could be both regrettable and exciting at the same time. Before I could figure it out, she called me. I picked up, and I heard Ava's voice on the other end. Hello, Ethan? Me, I replied. Do you know you're quite interesting? You've said that before. Yes, I have. And if I recall correctly, someone else said that to you before me, right? My expression changed slightly. How do you know? Ha ha ha. How could I not know? Of course I know, Ethan. I'm more than aware of what happened between you and that person. You know Wu Mingxin? You were lying to me. My face turned pale. Of course I know her. My relationship with her is even closer than what you two had. Are you her best friend? No, don't you get it yet? What do you mean? Ethan, remember what I said on your back that night? I do. I felt like I understood something. Don't you think the ex-boyfriend I mentioned sounds like you? I vaguely guessed what was going on, and my face turned white. I dared not think deeply about it and trembled as I asked, What do you mean? What do you mean? Ethan, I am Wu Mingxin, your ex-girlfriend. You were the one I abruptly broke up with. You hurt me a lot back then. To get revenge, I had plastic surgery and found you again. I wanted to make you fall in love with me and then let you suffer the same heart-wrenching pain. I succeeded, Ethan. From the moment you waited for me to wake up in the hotel, I knew I had succeeded. Beep, beep. I hung up the phone, looking like I'd seen a ghost. Endless pain and sorrow enveloped my body. I remembered a phrase people say, you only truly want what you can't have. Tears fell involuntarily, dropping onto my clothes. Instinctively, I glanced at my shoulder. It seemed like there was still a damp spot from Ava's tears, or rather, woo machines. Suddenly, I recalled her ID. Witch. Yes, witch. How did I not think of it sooner? She was the witch all along.